don't sell this. Don't give it
Don't
away.
give it
This
away.
is you can't find these anywhere.
No.
I think I'll have to open and show you.
Yeah, I'd love to.
You know, and so that, because you would know as a drummer, oh no, this isn't the one, Raj. But I've had it so long. I remember when he gave it to me, he goes, that's why I never take it out. Drummers come over here sometimes. They
Right.
bring
Don't you mess with that.
Yeah, they go, can I play this? No. Just like that Princeton.
Oh, man.
You know,
that's a nice
it's
one.
yeah, that guy is help me here. The guitarist that played with Elvis.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It's right at the tip of my tongue.
I know it's right on the tip of my tongue, too. But yeah, but
And he played with when I was with for a short month with the he died in a glider crash in the bay.
Oh.
No, he was Rocky Mountain High,
I know, why are we-
Colorado.
see, we're old folks.
I know. Sorry, folks.
Sorry,
but it's
folks.
like short-term memory.
Yeah.
What can I say? You know.
We might have our intro there.
You know. That's what this interview's about.
It really is. I'm just trying to get backstory, B-roll here.
Yep.
So this is a kind of a test, and so hold on a second. John Denver.
Done. Thank you.
John Denver, folks.
Yeah, we did it. Doesn't take too long.
Hey everybody, Kirk McCaleb here, and welcome to another episode of So That Happened, Stories from the Sacramento 80s Music Scene. And I'm here joined by the one and only Mr. Roger Smith.
Hey, everybody.
Come on, DG. Hit me hard. Get it. Ow. Yes, sir. We got to get on down. We got to get it. Roger. Feels so good. That feels so good. Hanging with my baby. Say horse. Stick it.
Roger, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I've been waiting for this interview for a long time. We actually found out that we've run in some circles together in previous lives, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But Roger, thank you for having me.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. I'm very happy that you are bringing Sacramento to the forefront in terms of history.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't know how rich this area
Oh, without
is and was. You know,
And for us guys that lived through it, we can
Oh, man,
have
we-
the stories to tell.
we survived.
We survived it. So you were born in Dallas, Texas, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you first start into music?
It was actually here in Sacramento.
Okay, you moved.
And when my folks left Texas, when I was very young, maybe 4 or 5, we moved out to California. Long story short, from the Central Valley, where we worked in the fields,
Okay.
all the way up to Sacramento. And here in Sacramento, I was about 10 years old. It's when I got my introduction into R&B, soul, and what it felt like at a young age.
There you go. There you go. What kind of stuff were you listening to at that time?
Really didn't understand. I was listening to a lot of church music. Actually, my folks would have parties when I was young.
Okay.
And a lot of Diane Washington,
Oh, there you
Brooke
go.
Benton, Sam Cooke.
Oh, yeah.
All the, Otis Redding. Oh man, they'd have parties and they'd put all the kids in the back and
Oh, yeah.
have food and stuff back there.
Right.
And so I heard so much cool stuff
Yeah, yeah.
and would watch them dance,
Yeah.
And so the rhythm and the soul was always in my household
There you go.
all my life,
So,
and
and did you take lessons officially, or did you just basically do things by ear? How did you do that?
okay, well, I started by
'Cause
ear.
this guy's so awesome.
Yeah. I started by ear.
Yeah.
And a little backstory here.
Yeah.
When we first got here when I was 10, we lived here in Sacramento. My neighbor happened to be a gentleman named Ron McGriff. He's one of my best friends.
Okay.
His uncle was the late, great Jimmy McGriff.
Oh.
And back then, there were a lot of places, as we called, Sacramento was kind of loosely affiliated with what's called the Chitlin Circuit, where the black R&B soul acts would come through here and play. And so Jimmy was one. And so Ron's dad had what I'd called a church organ,
Okay.
which I later found out was a B3.
There you go. The Hammond B3.
And Jimmy would play this thing and just, I didn't understand that a church organ could sound like that. Man.
Right?
And so anyway, that's what really brought out the juices, if you will.
Yeah.
Jimmy taught me my first two songs,
Okay.
Little Red Rooster and Down the Road a Piece.
There you go.
And I would go home and I'd play it on our piano at home. And my mom would, no, 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 no. You know, let's play Come Thou Almighty Saints right now. You know, so I wasn't allowed. But, you know, that was kind of like my
That's how you
start.
started. Okay.
Yeah.
So started out playing by ear, got introduced to that wonderful B3 sound,
Mm-hmm.
and then did you take lessons from there, or did you continue down the path of?
When my mom, at that moment, my mom said, okay, this kid has something. And so she had a lady that was in our church named Mother Watkins, fabulous pianist,
Okay.
and from the old school.
Yep.
And everything back then was old school. Let's set that first. Okay.
Old school.
You don't talk back. You don't, you know, that it's
yeah.
one of those. So she was teaching me basic piano so I could learn my ABCs.
Yep. Yep.
And so I started off with this thing called John Thompson's second grade reader, the little yellow books.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and I think I got as far as this song called Bill Grogan's Goat. You know, hey, don't kill me. That's what I did. And I could play the heck out of it, you know. But I hated going to Mother Watkins' house with my mom
Yeah.
and going, na, 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 clam,
Ruler. Boom.
bam, true. And I hated that, man. So this lasted maybe 6 months. And so I go to my mom, I'm about 11 years old, hey, I wanna go back, you know, and I'm crying and I'm moaning. I don't want to take you. Well, okay, well, you don't have to. You're not going back over here. I don't want to hear you playing that blues stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And so, of course, I kept
Yeah, you're
going. Of course,
sneaking
I
the blues,
snuck
yeah.
around. And that's kind of like how I developed or really start feeling that feel of rhythm and blues,
Okay,
you know, and soul, if you will.
Yeah.
You know.
And then, so from there, I'm sure you played high school stuff, and
No.
no, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
You went right into playing with other bands.
You know, I didn't even do bands back then.
Tell me how that.
No,
how did
okay.
you get into all? of
Well,
this?
you know, like
How do you go from not playing in bands to
the
Tower of
trauma,
Power?
the trauma of the ruler got me totally out of it.
Okay.
You know, and my mom was deeply religious, and so a couple of years, you know, going all the way up to junior high and high school, you know, I had to be in church.
Yeah.
And play the hymnal and play for the choir and do all that. Thank God, because a lot of it saved my life.
Right. Amen.
But at the same time, I hated every
Right.
minute of it, man, because it was a forced thing.
Right, yeah.
You know. So I got into high school, you know, I was a typical high school guy. I, you know, spent most of the last 2 years of my high school life in the Black Panthers.
Oh, really?
And that took me, and I was always in the Bay all the time, and listening to all this cool jazz, all this cool
Oh, yeah.
stuff, you know, where Carol Doda was, you know, where place we used to sneak in down there. I was underage.
Right. Yeah.
And I also got to see Ike and Tina Turner at, you know where Cabal Blanco is?
No, I've heard.
Right
of
over on Franklin Boulevard
Oh,
in
yeah,
Fruit
yeah,
Ridge.
yeah, yeah.
Well, upstairs,
Okay.
there was a dance hall, and that's where I saw them. You know, Ike and Tina, my cousin took me
Wow.
there. Yeah. So anyway, but that's what it was. It was just a roller coaster of experiencing different things, experiencing life, different social movements, learning about who I am as a black person,
There you go.
what that meant.
Right.
And too lengthy to get into, but that really you know, having me understand the love I had for jazz,
Yeah.
even though I couldn't play it. You know, I just loved it, and that's all I listened to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a backstory.
Got a lot in common. I love jazz.
Yeah.
Love jazz. Yeah.
And so that's kind of like how I got into that.
So, what was the first band that you played with?
The very first group I had in life was just some local guys here in town. Oh, it was me, Mick Valentino, and I think Ray Raymond, the late Ray Raymond. And we called the band Stupid Rural Report.
I thought you were going to say it was Trauma Ruler.
Oh, it was pretty much. And our little tag was we get Stupid World Report, stupid music for stupid people. Sorry, but that's what we did.
Wow.
And but it was all this weird. I had a tune called Preface to Insanity, which was the most outrageously, yeah.
Love to hear that.
Yeah. it was really a whacked out tune. We just had fun playing.
Yeah.
That was kind of like, you know, me kind of getting into it. Then I didn't do anything, man. And along came Uncle Sam.
Okay.
You know, I got drafted and did my stint in the Army. And before I came home from Texas, we would, there was a place called Special Services.
Okay.
And we would go there and, you know, just play and hang out.
Sure,
Because we
sure.
were guys waiting to go home, right?
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of service kids, sergeants' kids, colonels' kids that would come in. So they'd all come in, they'd bring in things that we weren't supposed to be doing.
Right.
And we'd be doing, and we sit out there all day
Right.
jamming.
Okay.
And so I came home, and that's when everything kind of blew up. About 6 months after I was back here in Sacramento, I got a phone call. And that phone call was from a good friend of mine now, from one of the kids that would always show up and jam with us.
Okay.
Called me up and says, "Hey, man, I want to start a band. I want you in it." I said, "Dude, you don't even know me. You know, who is this?"
What do you think
You know,
about that?
and I wouldn't even talk. Another phone call, and I hung up. My mom answered the second one, the third one, I'm sorry. And she said, "It's that boy from Texas again."
Okay.
And it was this gentleman. I won't, you know, I'll spare you
Spare us
the name.
Okay.
But a dear friend of mine now. We've been close for years. And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to stop this once and for all."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, man, look, send me $500 cash and a round trip first class ticket, and you got me."
Okay.
I figured that was the end of it.
There you
No.
No. Okay. Here
He
comes the
sent-
ticket.
He sent it. I wound up in Austin.
Okay.
And that's where I started my first group ever. It's where I got my first professional gig
Okay.
ever with the late Freddie King.
Oh. Yeah.
The group that I started back then was called Blind Melon.
Blind Melon.
Yeah.
And wasn't Eric Johnson part of that?
Eric Johnson, how old was he? 16, 17?
Oh, my God.
Somewhere in there.
Young Eric Johnson.
Yeah, it was me, Eric Johnson, off and on Roscoe Beck, and bass player. Kyle Brock, he was the bassist all the time.
Yeah.
Tomas Ramirez on saxophone. Keith Newberry on drums. That was my blind man. Jay Podolnik, he was a singer.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, did you guys play in? Obviously, you started there in Austin. Did that move towards our way, or did
No,
that
it never
pretty much
did.
Stayed
It
in
stayed.
Texas?
Austin was a hub
Mm-hmm.
back then, and we played at the Armadillo World headquarters
Oh wow.
back then, and we were opening up for the first incarnation of Mahavishnu whenever he'd come to town.
Oh, wow.
With the original group.
Wow.
We opened the show for them. We'd open the show for ZZ Top, Freddie King. That's how that happened.
Yeah, that's how that happened.
Let's see, B.B. King, Leon Russell, whoever came through, we were the band to open.
Right.
And so I'd leave my organ up there so the organ players could play the organ.
Okay.
And that's how,
Some of these cats that you ended up playing with later on in life, like Leon Russell.
yeah, Leon
Yeah.
Russell, like I say, Freddie King was the one of the gigs he came through, his organist was sick.
Okay.
And so I went and knocked on Freddie's door and said, "Hey, man, I'll play," even though I was not ready yet, and not even for blues, you know. He says, "Okay, man, come on." So I got on stage, and I played. And Freddie kept me on his gig for just about maybe 5 weeks till his organ player came back. And that was my introduction
To the
into
pro gigs.
that next
Wow.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
First gig ever.
Very good. And so, then how long did Blind Melon stick together?
Oh man, we were together for at least a year, maybe two. And then I think I came back here and I went back to Austin and put together another group called Bumpin' Company. And it was just a top 40 thing. We were doing all the war stuff and all that, the Santana stuff
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
popular back then. And that was pretty much the extent of, even though Texas, when I was in Austin, that was the beginning of my thing.
Okay.
That was
That's
where
what
I learned everything. Came back here and,
Now, what year did you come back?
oh,
back to
geez,
Sacramento?
let's see. It had to be in 70, 71,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Okay.
70, I think. I get them kind of confused. It's been so long ago.
No, really? Has it been that long?
Yeah, just a few years,
Yeah.
But and just talking about it. Okay, sit
I know
down,
you
just
gotta-
come back, come back.
Yep.
A lot happened in the middle, of course. A lot of little musical things, a lot of little turnarounds that'll probably start popping up in this conversation as we go. But
Let them pop.
when I came back here, I really jumped into the world of jazz. There was a group called John Quill back then, and that was Jimmy Robinson, the late Bob Bell, Steve Gundy on sax, Al Bent trombone, and the late Jimmy Daniels on guitar.
Okay.
And so, here's me, I had my little Wurlitzer piano and stuff. And these guys would come out, man, and they'd sit with me like we're sitting here.
Yeah, yeah.
And they'd put their hands on my keyboard. They knew I couldn't read worth a damn.
Okay.
So, and I'd look at music, what's this, And so they'd put, all these tunes. They would actually show me, they said, put your hands here, man, do what I do.
Wow.
Okay, this is that song. Okay, I want you to do what I'm doing. And so they showed me, and I would cop it.
There you go.
They would show me difficult tunes like Lush Life, Stella by Starlight.
Okay.
The two most difficult, for me,
Yeah.
the two most difficult tunes to this day I'd ever tried to learn and or play.
Oh, wow.
Fast forward, there was where McGeorge School of Law is.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
right there in the corner, I think it's a library now. There, no, it's a parking lot. Where that parking lot is, right in that little confluence of roads right there
Okay.
by Oak Park.
Yeah.
That was a club right there.
Oh, okay.
And right there off of 30 or whatever that was, 34th. And I think it was called the Maja Club, something like that. And we were playing in there, and I had my little world. So this is after they had been showing me intently how to play these songs. So we're playing Lush Life. And so everybody's up there playing, and I'm just killing it because they got me covered.
Right, yeah.
I'm just screwing it up back there. I take my hands off. I look good. I'm playing. So they all solo, killing it. The crowd's going, a few people in that little
Right,
club just
right.
loving it, man.
Yeah.
And Steve walks off, Al walks off, Jimmy puts his guitar down, and he takes off. And it's just me, the drummer, and the bass player.
Wow.
Go ahead and play, man. I got far as the first two bars of that song. And it was clam chowder, man. After that, it was total. I mean, it was the worst. I couldn't figure out. And the bass player, Steve Gundy, stood up in the back of the crowd, and he started cussing me out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is old school learning.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm sitting up there, and
Back
I'm,
to the ruler.
yeah, and it was deep, man. I thought I was going to die. Steve Gundy is just using every swear word you can think of and every explicative thing, just pouring it out. I tell you, and then somebody at the bar was drunk. Yeah, get his ass off stage. Get him. Oh, he went there.
Oh, my
And so now I'm almost in tears. I'm that scared.
Wow.
And so Bob Bell, God bless him, he took his bass, and I'm like, where you're sitting?
Yeah.
He eased in front of me. He said, man, get your stuff and get out of here. Get your stuff and get out of here. It's a true story.
Wow.
And so I tucked tail between my legs, and I packed up my stuff, and I tried to get out that one way. And everybody was dogging me out. Yeah, you get your ass out of here, man, until you learn. Don't even come back. We don't want to see you again. And Steve Gundy said, I ought to kick your butt. I ought to kick,
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And by the time I got to my car, I was shaking
Yeah.
and just sobbing uncontrollably.
Well, yeah.
Because that kind of humiliation, I'd never in life experienced.
And it was doing something that you loved to
Yeah.
do. That's hard.
But it was necessary.
Yeah.
It was like a giant ruler on the hand.
Right.
And I vowed that would never, ever, happen to me again.
Yeah.
And that's when I moved back to Austin
Okay.
and put together that group, Bumpin' Company, I
Bumpin'
told you
Company.
about. And I practiced every day, man. I mean, I practiced hard.
Yeah.
And got the old fake book out.
Yeah.
Even though we weren't playing jazz, I knew I was going to come back to Sacramento one day.
Right, right.
And I practiced. Was I a great piano player? Hell no. Could I get through the tunes? Yes. So we came back here. Fast forward, there was a place in town called Parapaw Palace.
Okay.
Back in the day.
All right.
And it was the same group, John Quill. Had a great keyboardist, Delbert Bump. Do you know Delbert? Ever heard of him?
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
Delbert Bump,
Oh.
fabulous organist, pianist. He teaches in Davis. And so I come back, and it's Jimmy, Bob, Al Bent, and Jimmy Daniels had passed, but I think Steve was
There's a
playing too.
redemption.
Yeah. And so I got on stage, and these guys had already told their friends that were in the bar that we were a little, we're not sure about this keyboard player. We tried him before, and it didn't work out too good. So I got on stage, man, and I literally, as they say in the business, I showed my ass.
There you go.
I played my butt off. And then as soon as the first set was done, some guys at the bar, hey, man, we're not worried about him. We're worried about you guys. And that was.
So that trip to the car didn't end the same way.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was
awesome.
kind of like, for me, redemption.
Yeah.
And it kind of allowed me to, okay, now I'm going to experiment with some other things and
Yeah.
that and that. And that was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
You know.
Where did it go from there?
Oh,
'Cause,
man.
I mean, you've got a career that just we could sit here and spend 3 hours talking
Yeah.
about it. But in Sacramento, what drove you to the next level of not only just playing with people like Tower of Power, but Jeff Beck, Gladys Knight, Leon Russell? I mean,
Okay.
how did all of that kind of come together?
Well, the Leon Russell thing came through via Willie Nelson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's all Austin based, right?
Right.
And when I had not Bumpin' Company but Blind Melon together, we would always play up at the hill. There's a place called Crady Bond's Hill in the Moon, and I was in Austin, and Austin back then was like the Berkeley of Texas.
Okay.
All the hippies would show up, and we'd all get out there and just party. It was like Burning Man before Burning Man was even thought of.
Yeah.
And Willie Nelson was always out there, and so he heard us and he liked it, and then I opened for all these bands, and Leon was in town. He heard me, and this was the second birth of Mad Dogs and Englishmen.
Okay. Okay.
And so I wound up doing some dates with that.
Right.
That's how I wound up with Leon Russell and Joe Cocker, the late Joe Cocker.
Wow.
It was short-lived, but it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice guys.
Oh, man, the best. The best. There's a book out about some rock and roll craziness. I don't know what the name of the book is, but my experience and one of the things that we did during our insanity is in that book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so through that, who did I meet back then? To Leon or Joe Cocker. The Jeff Beck thing.
Yeah,
came
I was going to
around.
ask you, how did that come about?
I
Jeff
got
Beck is
I got a
just
phone call.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was young Stanley, or what's that drummer? I can't even call his name. Ainsley Dunbar.
Oh, Ainsley.
And,
Wow. Yeah.
And let's see, it's so
Oh,
this all ties in so much, man, because a lot of this was happening between Texas, and there's a Soul Train thing that I even get
Yeah.
into.
Sun Bear.
All this stuff, man. So I wound up, I can't exactly put the dates together, but I wound up through this phone call from Ainsley in London, and wound up out at Jeff's place out at Essex. And we jammed, and it worked. Come to find out, the guys in the band were Ron Wood, Stanley Clark, Ainsley for a minute, Rod Stewart,
Wow.
and that was the band. That went on for maybe 8 or 9 months, off and on. We rehearsed.
Yeah.
We did one gig in Monaco for the Principality there. We did another gig in Sultan of Brunei.
Wow.
Yeah, and the other one was at Albert Hall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at Sir Albert Hall.
Now, what years was these? What about?
72,
Oh, wow.
71, 72, interspersed in there. 71, 72, early 70. Yeah, right in that area. And that's when, during the time within 71, 72, 73, so much was happening in my musical career.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, too, a lot was happening with medically induced social life,
Right?
you know, to put it a different way.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it was a whirlwind
Sure.
all the time. Yeah, it was about that 3-year period, you know, that calls Soul Train,
Yeah,
this,
how did
Gladys
that-
Knight, all of it.
Yeah, talk
Well-
about Sun Bear, which was the house band for Soul
So
Train.
Soul
right?
Train,
Yeah.
correct. Well, a dear friend of mine, Aguna Son, this is before I went back to Texas. We had a group together, me, Aguna, and it was just us two. We were a duo. And we used to go over and see Newell Burton over at Brown's Paradise. And we wound up doing just organ and drums like Frosty and, you know,
Right.
Lee
Yeah,
Michaels.
yeah.
And we played together so much. We'd even go to the Elk Grove High School, and back of my dad's pickup, I put the Larry Davis's,
Okay.
his C3, the back of my dad's pickup, and we'd go out there and play, and he'd have his drums, just the two of
Wow.
us, and we would just play for the kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they dug it because what the heck is this, you know? But we play anyway.
Organ and drum.
Yeah, and that's kind of like how our brothership came together. So he wound up doing this and doing that, and we came back together. I got a call from them saying that him and Warner Bear Schuchner had started a group, and they call it Sun Bear, and they were signed to Dick Griffey's label,
Okay.
Solar.
Yeah.
And so he said, man, come on down, man. We finally got it going, you know. So the Brotherhood got together, and they started Sun Bear and brought me in. And we were there for a good year, maybe 2 years. And we did so many sessions. We were the late night band. That was Sun Bear.
Yeah.
And we did a record, you know, called Sun Bear. And to this day, to me, it's the stuff that was written on that record still stands.
I heard the voice of music saying, what you say, what you say, what you say, what you say.
That's the most important thing is that interplay. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're playing with people and you're locked into what you're doing, there's no other place like that in the world.
No, it's a feeling that you can't describe, and
Yeah.
you can't, you know, it's when that lock is there, you know, it does transcend to the audience if you have an audience,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, and you could see it,
Yeah.
you know, and that experience is something that every time I get on stage with my musicians, I strive to get,
Get that. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
all the time. It's very important.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Awesome.
happen, time to kind of rethink it,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So
Back to
that's
the
it.
ruler days.
That's
right?
it,
Yeah.
man.
So, all right, now let's fast forward a little bit further. Now we're moving into the 80s here.
The 80s. yeah.
Sacramento in the 80s. That's what this show is about.
Yeah.
And
Hello, 80s.
hello 80s.
Yeah.
So, what were you doing in the 80s here? There wasn't a, you know, it was very myopic here in the 80s. You know, you had your top 40 bands, you had your punk bands, you had your new wave, you had your rock. There wasn't a big R&B soul presence, but yet a lot of great people such as yourself,
There
Jay
were-
King,
yeah.
came out of this. How did that work for you?
Well, we'll talk about how it was. And I say this, and I say this not as your audience sees this. Oh God, this guy's all pissed off.
No.
No, this was the way it was. Period.
Yep.
The clubs were kind of shutting down, and there wasn't that much room. A lot of the booking agents weren't booking black acts.
Right.
Period.
Right?
Very racist.
Yeah.
Very segregated.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the clubs themselves would look at it and say, well, so you got a black lead singer, okay, maybe. How many other black guys or girls you got in the band? This is for real.
Yeah, I
This
know.
is what we as black people or black musicians had to deal with,
Yeah.
and had to really smile and go, "Yazza boss," and try to make it work. And because
days.
you had to work.
Yeah.
I was told one time when I was with the late Coke Escovedo. I was a musical director for his band, and we put his band together, and we had gotten the deal with Mercury, and we were going to go out with Kool and the Gang. So I wanted the band, which the majority of them lived here in Sacramento.
Right.
I wanted them to play at a club somewhere just so we could play.
Sure.
And so I went to this one particular club and asked the owner of this particular place, look, man, we'll just come in on your off nights, Monday, Tuesday, no money. Just let us set up and play.
Yeah.
So the guys can kind of, get a feel
Get
for
their
Coke's
job.
music.
Yeah, yeah.
And he looked at the whole thing that Mercury had put together, the whole thing. Back then you had the 8x10.
Of course.
So I handed him the whole
Promo pack.
package. Quote, it looks good, but So Raj, can you take the 3 black girls and put them in the back and do this? It's a color thing, you understand.
Yeah.
This was told to me in my face
Yeah.
by this club owner. And this is the way it was.
Yeah.
So the club, the Coke Escovedo thing went fine. We didn't, something happened with the Kool and the Gang thing, didn't work. So Coke had some issues too. So that kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
By this time, I was a very angry black person in this town.
Yeah.
I came back and I called some of my buds, and I put together a band called Mighty Whitey. Yes,
Well,
I
there you
did.
go.
I have an 8x10 to prove it. And
I want that 8x10, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Billy Roberts was one. He's the drummer in the band.
Okay.
The late Jerry White.
Okay.
He played guitar. Andy Hazlitt was singer. Mick Valentino played bass.
Wow.
And I did this totally as a Saturday Night Live spoof. I put this band together just because.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did nothing but R&B and soul.
Very good.
We rehearsed our butts off for almost 10 days straight, and we got a repertoire of about 50 tunes, went right back to the same clubs that turned me away.
Okay.
Booked just like that.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
White guys.
Really?
Called Mighty Whitey. That's what I called the band. And the guys would say, I won't mention the booking agent's name,
Right.
but they said, well, it's Mighty Whitey. I said, no, think about it, man. And I'm just shoveling crap to these guys.
Right.
And Billy and the guys were sitting there in the office, and they're thinking, oh, God, he's going to do this. And so I said, look, man, we can have a good hook. We can even go to Vegas, which we did.
Did you?
I
All
said,
right.
yeah. I go, look, why don't we, like my stage name would be James Whitey Johnson. These guys are dying. And Jerry White's already Jerry White. That's Jerry White.
Right.
As Andy Hazlitt White.
Yeah.
Everybody's, we're Mighty Whitey.
Mighty Whitey.
And so I said, no. I said, this will work. This will really work. So we dressed up in suits and stuff, booked us.
See, here's the deal. Lessons to the folks out there.
Yeah.
Okay. This is how you get around that kind of stuff. You make fun of it.
Yep.
Right?
We made fun of it, and it was the biggest inside joke.
Yeah.
And people laughed about it, but we got the job.
Yeah.
My point was proven.
Yeah.
During the 80s, unless you had a Prince vibe or a Rick James vibe or some kind of hook like Little Richard or James Brown, you ain't going to make it as a black person
Right,
doing
yeah.
this thing unless you already have a big gig.
Yeah.
And that was factual.
Yeah. Factual.
I was told that you have to write quality music and kind of, can you grow your hair and look like Prince? I was told that to my face.
Wow.
Then we can get you in there. And that was the hook here in this town.
Yeah.
I lived here. This is home.
Yeah.
And I never left home other than to go work.
Right.
But I had other options.
Sure.
And thank God I had the other options.
Yeah. Yeah.
But during that time in the 80s too, I had the opportunity to work with some very talented guys. Forget the other part of this, the other racist part.
Yeah.
Very talented guys like Steve, the guy you mentioned.
Steve Scott.
Steve Scott.
Yeah, I played with Steve Scott out at the Warehouse Ministries.
Yep. And Charlie
Peacock.
Let's see, who else was out there?
Vector 77.
Vector, all those guys. Yeah, Mike
Bruce
Rowe and them.
Spencer,
I did records with Mike
I
Rowe
think
in
that's where we
77s.
must have met.
Uh-huh.
We were hanging around at the
Yeah.
same time.
And it was so cool because it was, all those songs were different than what I was used to playing.
Right.
But it was a challenge. And
Yeah.
I really wanted to step up to the challenge. And I like these guys. They're my
Yeah.
buds.
Oh, yeah.
And we all played together off and on. So I thank God every day for the fact that I had the opportunity to flip the switch.
Right. Right.
And okay, I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were really loving to me, welcoming.
Yeah.
And so that really helped get inside that kind of stuff. And I wound up going on tour with Charlie,
Yeah.
off and on, you know, in the 77th. I must have done, Mike, you answer this when you see it, okay? I forget how many records. And Mike Rowe,
Yeah.
he had me do a solo, and he knew that the key of B was the worst key in the world to try for a keyboardist, at least for me.
Okay.
He says, "Come on, Raj, it's in the key of B, solo." I hate you, Michael. But it was a challenge I tried to stand up to,
Yeah.
and eventually wound up on his record.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then didn't you also a stint you taught keyboards at
Skips.
Skips, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. All of us bought stuff at Skips.
Oh,
you know,
every
so
band.
yeah.
That was the place to go. And
Yep.
thank you, Skip, late Skip.
Yep.
Rest your soul. You know, at that time, you know, there was really nothing on my plate. You know, being a mortal man, everybody falls down. You pick yourself up.
Yeah.
And at one of my lowest dips, Skip, he says, "Look, let's come out here and teach." So he gave me a room up there, and I was there for months.
Upstairs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and taught piano. And I'm not a learned professor of music, not at all. But I had a style
Yeah.
that people wanted to learn.
Right.
And I was able to teach people just like I was taught, hands-on.
Yeah.
You know, and some of these guys, they come in, they take pictures
Of your hand
this,
position.
or either have their little recorder.
Yeah.
I said, so I'm going to play this rhythm for you slowly. And they'd come back and they have to play that rhythm. Okay, here's an organ rhythm. I want you to do this.
Yeah.
Now in the key of E, how would you play? You know, that was my curriculum.
Right.
You know, it's basically rhythmical style, not necessarily chordal, and this is how you play a diatonic scale.
Right.
No,
Right. Yeah.
no. That all came, you learn that somewhere else.
Right.
Let me just show you the basic thing of how to play in a rhythm section.
Yeah. Because that's it. You're playing, with Tower of Power, even to this day, you are part of the rhythm section.
Yes.
Keyboards, most people think of as, well, it's the bass line for underneath the chords, creating textures and layers and maybe
Exactly.
melody and all that stuff. But you're playing it as a pure rhythm instrument.
Yes, and
Yeah.
thank you, Chester. When I first heard Tower without Chester, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because I used to go to the warehouse and watch him all the time back in the day and go down to the bay. Then along comes Chester Thompson. Good God. He turned the organ community, all of us commercial guys, upside down with the way that he approached those songs.
Yeah.
And I can say that I don't think there was one organ player in the Bay Area, in Northern California, that didn't go nuts when these records came out with
Right.
Chester Thompson on
Right.
it, because it was so different. The approach of playing the organ was so different that, Chester innovated that entire field. And I fell right into it.
Right into it. You picked up on it. Yeah, yeah.
And I watched that band at least 100 times. I can't even count them.
Yeah.
Watched them and all the times I play. Got to know Chester real well. Got to know the band real well. And while on tour with Gladys, off and on, I met them back in '72, first time with Gladys.
Okay.
And we'd catch each other, catch them over here, catch them over there, and we got to be real good friends. And that's pretty much how, in my opinion, that organ thing came about,
Okay.
and my style started
Style
developing.
right.
Yeah,
Now, and then also in Sacramento, you were doing some other things like with Jay King.
Yeah,
Little
yeah.
bit of
Jay
weekend.
King. I got to work with Jay. Jay had was it Timex Social Club, and then Club Nouveau.
Yeah.
That was a blast, man. We put together a couple of groups with Jay, and we went to Japan a couple of times and did some gigs around here. And I had the good fortune of playing with those guys, and that was a lot of fun. And Jay, I had a good time with Jay, and we still are good friends to this day.
Yeah, I interviewed him earlier this year, so it was a blast. So.
Yeah, Jay's. What I appreciate and like about him is that he is a lot of foresight and forethought. He knows, and this is what I've learned from this man, how to really find a path and get the most out of it. How to recognize and utilize all the channels that are presented to you.
Yeah.
And not just musically, but socially as well.
Obviously, I mean, you told me, the breakdown, the crying in the car for the one gig, the rulers on the hand.
Yeah.
The 80s scene wasn't very nice to people of color in this town. Well, it's part of history here. Folks.
is.
We're not gonna whitewash it, right?
Oh, ding.
But you moved on.
Yeah.
You kept going.
Well,
and
yeah,
you kept
I-
plugging away, and
and
that's really what it's all about.
That's it, man. It's like you don't, I took that lesson from my folks.
Yeah.
Coming from a black family and a mom and dad that didn't stop. They did everything to take care of the family. A lot of it I didn't understand until I got later in my high school years and started understanding black history more. Case in point, when I was in junior high, I was a Negro. I never turned black. I didn't know anything about my history.
Right.
And as I'm learning about this stuff, man, the reason I'm saying this is because it all ties in.
Yeah.
The pride of where I come from, where we come from as a people. I would ask the teachers, no, that's not true. We brought this in. This guy did this, or this person invented that.
Right.
And Smith, get out of the room. So I was kicked out of class more times than I can count. And I wasn't really disruptive. I just asked questions, but the teachers weren't
prepared to
answer
handle
that.
No,
because that's not in their curriculum.
Right.
It's not even anywhere in the books. So anyway, but yeah, man, that's, I watched my folks and what they endured. Then once I started learning and I got mature enough and sober enough to really let it all sink in
Understand it,
and bring it into my heart and go, okay, how best for me and the people I love and around me, how can I find my path here? And that really directed me, 38 years ago up until today, how to manipulate all the pitfalls.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly glad you did, because it's made our musical appreciation for what you do even greater. So
thank you, man. It's
let's talk now about Tower of Power, obviously. So how did that happen? I mean, you're playing with all these different people. You're playing in different bands, but how did the whole Tower of Power thing come about for you?
Tower of Power came about. A good friend of mine, Norbert Stachel. Now, mind you, I'd known the band for a long time.
Oh yeah, we all.
But that was it. Hey, what's up, man? You guys sound great.
Right.
Okay, so the Soul Train band.
Okay.
I'm telling you about. We got together and had a gig up in Lake Tahoe at a place called the Christiana, and it was right at the base of Heavenly. And during the season, snow season, packed all the time. Great food, great ambience. Small place, but for a trio with a horn, great.
Yeah.
So Norbert Stachel, who was on my very first record, and some other guys that I knew, he was playing sax with Tower at the time. So he calls me up and says, "Hey man, possibility Tower might be looking for a keyboardist, an organist. Would you be interested?" "Yeah, sure." And I said, "I'm going to be up at Tahoe." "Oh, wow, really? We're going to be in Tahoe at Harris."
Oh, wow.
I said, "Well, why don't you bring me over where I'm playing? It's just down the street." They showed up.
What was it, about 1998?
This was
98?
the beginning of 98. Yeah, the winter of 98.
Okay.
And so they showed up, Dave Garibaldi, and Emilio, and the then guitar player, Jeff Tamalier.
Wow.
They showed up. They hung out for 2 sets. And I was kicking bass, singing, and Aguna, the Soul Train drummer, and Warner Bear Schuchner from Sun Bear.
Wow.
And John Skinner on saxophone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not the big band John Skinner.
Yeah,
John Skinner. And we were just doing all the R&B and the stuff in there, and we just have a lot of grease in that place, man. We were just grooving.
Right.
And they stayed a long time.
Wow.
And after the second set, they get up and, "Thanks for coming in, blah, blah, blah." So me and we turned around and walked off. And Dave goes, "Hey, man, sound great." Jeff Tamalier goes, "You got to be in this band.
Wow.
You have to be in this band." And I went, "Wow, thanks, man." So I didn't, I get a call from management, and management wanted me to go to Oakland to, get in the line and audition.
Right. Yeah,
I had no problem with that because
Sure.
it's right down the street. Even though I at that time I said, okay, but they heard me, but I didn't, okay, well, there's so many badasses out there, I may or may not. So that changed, and they wanted me to go to L.A.
Okay.
and do it. I said, wait a minute. Okay, so that means, I got to get down to L.A. I'm going to have to probably get a place to stay.
Starting to add up.
Food, getting back. Yeah. Okay, that's about a $350 to $500 maybe. And so I said, look, are you guys going to fly me down? No, we don't do that. Okay, fine. Well, then I'll have to pass because I can't afford it, number one. And you guys already heard me, number two.
Right, yeah.
So if I'm not on the dais on the consideration, well, then no harm, no foul.
Right.
Okay, and so they moved on, hired an organ player. And so I went on about my business.
Yeah.
No big. We just kept playing. That was fun.
Yeah.
And about 2 weeks later, Dave Garibaldi calls up.
Okay.
He asked me, he says, look, man, can you, we like the way you play, and we'd love for you to come down to my house, me, Rocco, and Jeff, just jam with us. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, let's jam.
So I took my stuff, and we go down there, we jam, had a blast.
Yeah.
Came back home, he called me up. No, before I left, he says, can you leave this up here? Let's do it again. We really dug it. So went back the next day, played those tunes, man. And to play it with Rocco and Dave was amazing.
Oh, it's got to be.
Amazing. I mean,
Gotta be.
I couldn't even, I was fumbling through them just looking at them, man. It was amazing. I mean, these guys I revered,
Yeah.
and so I come home. Before I came home, we're done playing. And I tore down my stuff, and we're just kind of kicking and having a glass of wine. And folks, this is a true story. Dave Garibaldi gets on the phone. Dave, I'm putting you out on Front Street here. He calls Emilio Castillo up, and he goes, "Hey, Mimi, it's Dave. We got our organ player."
Oh,
And I'm sitting there. I went,
this was an audition.
I didn't have a slap. Yeah.
Wow.
And they already, it was amazing. That's how I got in the band.
Wow. And
Mind you, their organ player, none of the rest of the band knew anything about this.
Oh,
Nobody. It was, Emilio was told we have as a rhythm
by
section.
Dave Garibaldi.
Yeah, we have our organ player.
That's great.
And
you've
so-
been with them now for 26 years, so it must be working
26,
out.
yeah. So it's all good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Tower.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that because we had talked a little bit before this interview and how, the first year that you played with Tower, you really had to find your place.
Oh, did I ever? It was a struggle, man, because Dave had a specific way of playing, and so did Rocco. And I found it daunting at first because I didn't understand. I'd play, and I thought that I was playing what Chester was doing.
Okay.
And I guess I was to a certain degree, but it just wasn't gelling, And so they said, it's almost, you're overplaying. And I guess I was, because I'd been doing a trio thing
You're
for so
excited,
long.
man.
And that too. But after doing a trio for 3 years, then all of a sudden have to pull back.
Yeah, because you're in a trio, you're trying to fill out space.
Everything, yeah.
Now, when Tower Power, there's lots of stuff going on.
And so, so I started with Tamalier, and I said, man, what are you playing? And so I just listened to his parts. Okay. Oh, there it is. And Rocco, let me hear what you're doing so that my left hand doesn't get in the way.
Right.
And I'd have to I used to record them by themselves.
Okay.
So I could tell their interplay.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I listened to Dave, and it took a good year before, they didn't fire me, thank God, but because I was always learning and advancing all the time. And it took a good year for me to really formulate my style, but staying in the footprint of Chester.
Right.
And that's a big foot, man.
And for those of us who have seen Tower of Power since 1998 with Roger in it, we all can attest it's a well-oiled machine and it sounds fantastic. I'm a big Tower of Power fan.
Yeah.
So, favorite album, Tower of Power. Let's go there.
Favorite? Oh man, that's a.
Is it going to be Bump City?
No.
Because we'll talk about.
It's going to be Back to Oakland.
Oh, okay.
I think Back to Oakland. That's.
Tell me why.
Every song on that thing for me is so well oiled.
Mm-hmm.
It's the quintessential Tower to me. This is when they had that machine going, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah.
The rest, the other ones, not taken away from it.
Of course.
But this is when it seemed like, to me, it was like an organ trio with horns. And that's why I loved it.
There you go.
You
You said your thing with him was through. I was in love, so I believed you. But what you said, girl, didn't quite ring true. When you were with him, he hurt you before. Now you seem to wanna run on back for more. I just can't.
For an organ player from that perspective, it really showed me a whole nother thing. With got a big horn band with vocals and all these parts going on, but the organ was not buried. It was right there.
Right.
And you heard every little thing he was doing and moving the band around
Yeah.
behind that. All the videos that were out that when you'd watch Chester
Right.
play,
Yeah.
it was like an organ trio.
Yeah.
And that's what it reminded
There
me
you
of.
go. Well, makes sense.
Yeah. And so I think back to Oakland, with I think that one was Walking Up Hip Street, I think.
Yeah.
And
I think so.
after Squib Cake, so Walking Up Hip Street, everything kind of started growing,
Yeah.
all those tunes in there. Clean Slate, Maybe It'll Rub Off, all those tunes like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And to this day, Maybe It'll Rub Off is one of the most difficult songs for me to play and sing and play rhythm behind.
Is it because of the interplay of the rhythm of the words and the
rhythm
hand
of
placement?
the rhythm of the vocals and not only the tuning.
Yeah.
Because you're in F,
Okay.
but da-da-da-da, you're singing off the minor third and the major key.
Oh, yeah. I could-
And it's like boom, bubba dabba 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 bub. You have to play that bubble,
Yeah.
and you're trying to boom, diddle-diddle-diddle, and you're playing that. It's a minor third. You got a major going, and you have to really hit that note.
Yeah.
Because we've heard videos where, oops,
Oops.
oops,
didn't happen.
yeah, didn't, So for me, to this day, that's the more challenging tune to play precise. That little line, boom.
Might come on. This might come on. This groovy here seems so real. Might come on. Make you feel good. Might come on back on. Listen, can you feel it, baby? Can you feel it down in your soul like that?
Then all that,
Yeah.
that's hard, man.
Yeah. Is that in the set often?
No, because we've been changing personnel so much, man.
that's true.
So,
Because Dave Garibaldi just
He
left
retired,
this year,
yeah.
didn't he?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that was sad to hear that for sure.
And we were too. I Dave and I, over the years, we've become very, very close.
Yeah.
And I consider him a handful of people, one of my dearest friends.
Yeah.
And so we stay in touch a lot.
That's great.
Well, we're not done because he said, let's do something. Let's play something.
We got his drum kit in there.
Yeah,
so
drum kit's right in there, yeah.
He's going to have to come by
Yeah.
sooner or later.
And so, that snare we talked about,
But no one touches
no one touches that snare. That's Dave's snare.
He's going to let me look at it, folks, but I ain't touching it.
But yeah, so, Dave is a special person. He's kind of like what I call my forever brother. And like I said, I got a handful of those.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so me, him, and Mark Van Wageningen, who was with Pop Escovedo for many years, Sheila E. and
Yeah.
Wayne Brady Show, all that stuff.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
our bass player now.
Oh, wow.
And
And new vocalist, too.
the new vocalist is Jordan John from Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
He's a talented kid. His
Yeah.
dad, Parkesh John, is a bassist. He's Indian, East Indian. And he, back in the day, cut his teeth with every R&B, starting with Funkadelic Parliament with George Clinton.
Oh, George
And,
Clinton, love it.
And he wound up in that thing. He's, as we say in the business, funky as goat cheese.
Oh, yeah.
You
can't play in Parliament and not be funky.
Yeah, and so Jordan, his son, got a lot of that.
There you
This
go.
kid plays drums.
Yeah.
Now our drummer on one gig, had an health issue. He was kind of having a hard time, so we had to pull him off the drums. Jordan got back there just before our last song, played What Is Hip and sung the hell out of it. Played it on the drums. Now and he just got back up there and went, you know,
Yeah.
you know what? And I looked at him playing, going, damn. I told him, I said, stay away from my keyboard. Don't you even come over. He laughed.
That's funny.
Because he plays keyboards too.
Yeah.
Plays guitar, great.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
It's in his
working
blood.
with- Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure working with this guy.
That's awesome.
And the new drummer Pete Pete Antunes,
Yeah.
Antunes, Antunes, and the new trumpet was not new anymore. He's been in the band. Dave Richards.
Right.
You know, that's really given the band a huge blood infusion.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
There's been a lot of players in Tower of Power, but obviously one of the most stalwart members is Emilio.
oh yeah,
Talk about
Emilio and Doc.
Yeah.
You know.
Talk about those guys because I mean, 68 to now.
Yeah.
That's over 50 years.
56
of playing
years.
music. That's just it's an incredible endeavor that they're not only still capable of playing such great music, but you know that this band is still going on and pushing forward. So talk
that.
about your relationship with those guys.
Well, you know, Emilio, you know, what's the word for it? When you first meet him as a musician, because he's led the band for so long,
Yeah.
a little intimidating,
Oh yeah.
you know, but after a little bit, you know, it got to the point to where we became friends, you know, over the years. And I think the reason for that is because I'd never shown up drunk, never shown up late, you know, missed a couple of gigs because I could never had cancer, you know, and all that kind of. So the late Mike Finnegan took my place the first time,
Okay.
and then Bobby Sparks took my place the second time. But I've been there,
Yeah.
you know, and it's you know, I'm loyal to that because they were loyal to me, and I'm like that, you
Yeah.
know. I stick with the person that brung me.
That's
you
right.
know, and so the band has always been good to me.
Yeah.
Always been like, if I had something to say or do or wanted to change, wide open to it, because it pretty much Emilio. He's the beginning and end all, but he allows a lot of democracy
Very good.
in what's considered an autocracy.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know, and that's kind of a trip in a band.
Yeah, well,
you know.
and just thinking of the fact that, you know, you guys are, how many members are in Tower Power currently?
10.
Okay. Different folks than being in a 4-piece or a 3-piece
Yeah.
touring around the world. I mean, the logistics alone, but the interpersonal relationships have got to be a different type of breed too. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's you know, we've seen so many people come and go. And it's almost like, you know, when I was in service, you didn't want to get to know somebody because they might not be there anymore.
Right.
You know, even though we did become friends, and a lot of the guys that have been in the band, we're still good friends. But on a leadership perspective, it's always Emilio just kind of sits back and watches to make sure that, let's say like me, Dave, and at the time Rocco, this person going to stay? Is he going to make it? You know,
Right.
And then he'd expect us to let him know
Oh, yeah.
whether or not A, B, or C are going to be there.
Right.
And that's the way that kind of works.
Sure.
You know, it's changed a lot. Some guys come in, they leave. Some guys just weren't right. We had fire. Blah. That's the dynamic of a band.
It is. It's hard.
know.
You got to have that, you know, you got to have that not only musical capability, but
Yeah.
you got to have that interplay and that respect
Exactly.
and falling into that family relationship. Because it really is a family.
It really is as a family, and it's also the music that you play. Like we talked about earlier. If you're not, if you're a square and you got a round hole, you're trying to get yourself in there. It's not going to
No
work, buddy.
ruler's gonna help.
Yeah, nothing's going to help. And so we've had those kind of experiences too with different players. But for the most part, thank God we've been lucky.
Yeah.
And everybody who's come in, we kind of Gumby them up and be yourself, but you got to
You got to
fit in here.
So now, one more thing we need to talk about, and is Bump City Wine. So,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how did that even come about? Roger has Bump City Wine is in Clarksburg, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to coming and visiting it this Friday. How did Bump City Wine come out?
Okay, well,
would be-
a good friend of mine, my partner, Mike Smolich, we had, first of all, we've been buddies for over 40 years. and we, my wife and I were on the spot. Julie would call, hey, we're going to go up to Sonoma or go here and go taste. You guys want to go? Yeah, sure. So we'd jump on it. We'd always go hang out, and we enjoyed tasting good wine and enjoyed that, that camaraderie. So fast forward, Mike and I were members of a wine club up in Amador Cellars, and we had a barrel club thing going. So we'd make our own wine, our own Zinfandel.
Oh, okay.
And Randy Haight, who is a curator for Costco, the wine curator.
Okay, yeah.
He came up. He's a good friend of mine via Tower,
Right.
So he found out about this. I said, Randy, come on, I want you to taste the stuff. So we hung out in Amador. He tasted our Zinfandel, flipped him out because it was really good.
Wow.
And he goes, you need to have your own label, Roger. I'm going, dude, I'm just kind of barely getting by playing music. Label and wine, I don't even get that. He says, I got somebody I want you to meet. Takes me to Sonoma, and I meet Tom Larson at Larson Family Winery.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Tom Larson is a huge fanboy of Tower.
Very good.
I did not know this.
Okay.
So Tom's asking me, what would you like to do, man? I said, okay, I got 9 of my own records out, so maybe I can just tie it in some kind of way and maybe get a couple of pallets. That's about 110 cases of wine, and do that.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's it? I said, yeah, man. Yeah.
Don't know what?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What
And
do I
so
do?
he takes the keys out of his pockets to his entire facility, throws them on the desk, said, here you go, man. You get in my pocket too deep, I'll touch you on your shoulder.
Wow.
What he was saying was that here's all 300 acres, Carneros, Russian River, blah, 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 blah. My master winemaker, our labeling thing, our corrugate, all of it, bottling facility. Here you go.
Oh, wow.
And I was overwhelmed. I was totally, and my buddy Randy's going, you're in it now, pal. Thanks, Randy. And what? So I called my buddy Mike, and because Mike Smolich had several businesses here in Sacramento, and he had just sold them, and he had retired, chilling out, built his house, and just enjoying life. And I called him, hey, Mike, hey, Raj, hey, you want to go in the wine business? Sure. Okay. I got to leave tomorrow. Here you go.
So you gave it to him.
Yeah, basically. Well, somebody had to be the boss.
Sure.
And so fast forward, somebody had to be there for day-to-day operation.
Right.
And so we both learned by the skin of our teeth, because that's a business. The wine business is a whole nother entity other than regular retail.
Right.
The most of the approach of retail works the same, but because it's a living, breathing thing that has to be, it's FDA because it's a food.
Right. Yep.
That's a whole nother thing,
Right.
And then getting it in the stores, we found out the hard way. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And we learned that the hard way. We were in Whole Foods.
Okay.
Yeah. Walter Robb was a good friend, by the way. Walter Robb was a former owner of Whole Foods and a big Tower fan.
Yeah.
We were playing for his employee party, folks, and he was standing off to the side of my organ on the stage. And at that time, when I did my first bottling, Emilio was really pushing it, and he goes, yeah, and this guy on organ, he's got his own wine and blah, blah, blah. And so Walter goes, hey, you want it in Whole Foods? Now, mind you, you can't get a SKU or a product in Whole Foods. It would normally take you a year to 2 years to do this.
Wow.
And this man said, here, basically gave me all the continental USA.
Wow.
Now, right now. I said, no, time out.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
So we wound up, he asked for 9 Western states, no. 3 Western states, no. California, no. Let's try Northern Cal, 42 stores. And we tried that for a hot minute. And that was it. We did it for about, maybe 4 months.
That's a
And
commitment.
we looked at each other and went, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Now we still have VIP status
Sure.
with all the Whole Foods, but it didn't make sense for the amount that we were doing because we're more boutique. We don't do a lot.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's your count for
Our
a
count,
year?
like for 10 varietals, we may do 3,500 cases, and that's not a lot.
No, but like you said, for boutique.
Yeah. And basically what that does is satiate our wine club members. So we do enough to make sure they're okay. And at the transient public that comes into our tasting room, we have enough for selling there.
There you go.
You know.
How long has Bump City been in business?
10 years now.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, 10 years.
Well, I'm looking forward to visiting it this Friday. Tower Power. I mean, this episode's going to be way in the future from this, but this Friday, Tower Power is playing at your winery.
Yep,
correct?
at Bump City, right there in Clarksburg. The band's going to go on stage at 7:30.
Yeah.
Even though it will have happened already.
Yeah,
You
this
guys
is
see
it happened already, but we're telling what you missed.
Yeah.
Roger, thank you so much for having me in your
Oh,
studio.
man. It's a pleasure, man.
And for talking with me about this. And we can just say that, so that happened, right?
That happened in the 80s right here in Sacramento.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks, Raj.
You're welcome, man.
right.
I hope you can make sense of all that.
Hey guys, I'm Roger Smith, Sacramento music's 80s scene. I was there. Where were you?